Some machines talk to you, his grandfather once said, but only if you listen. The heat rising from the asphalt at Camden Regional Airport could fry an egg. But that didn't stop 17-year-old Malik Travers from wiping sweat off his forehead with the back of his hand and pushing an empty water cooler across the tarmac. He wasn't here for glamour. Malik wasn't flying jets or logging flight hours. His job was what people didn't notice: scrubbing oil stains off glass doors, restocking paper towels, or hauling gear for mechanics who forgot his name the second he turned away. But Malik didn't complain. He didn't need to. He was listening, watching, learning. His grandfather, Wallace Travers, had worked as an aircraft mechanic for the Air Force for 40 years. The man didn't just teach Malik how to clean a carburetor before he learned to drive. He taught him to respect every bolt, every whine, every click of an engine. Malik believed that engines were symphonies. You just had to be quiet long enough to hear the music. After every shift, Malik headed to the far corner of the airport, where an old, forgotten Beechcraft Bonanza sat under a dusty tarp. His grandfather had bought it at an auction in Kentucky and towed it home piece by piece before passing away. It hadn't flown in decades, but Malik was bringing it back to life, one bolt at a time. That Thursday morning felt like any other, until it didn't. At exactly 11:42 a.m., the terminal doors slammed open. A black SUV screeched to a halt near the private hangar. Out stepped a tall man in a crisp gray suit, barking into his phone. His two assistants trailed behind like shadows who hadn't slept in days. Malik didn't recognize the man, but he didn't need to. You feel people like that. "That's Callum Drake," someone whispered, CEO of Stratus Nova Technologies. Malik knew that name. Drake owned a fleet of private jets. He developed high-end avionics systems. Rumor had it he once grounded an entire airport because his espresso machine on board wasn't working. Drake's personal Gulfstream G500 stood 20 feet away, nose tilted, its undercarriage access panel wide open. A technician was crouched beneath it, frowning. "Serious electrical fault in the environmental control system," the tech muttered. "Compressors not drawing voltage." Malik's ears perked up. He recognized that tone. Confused, frustrated, afraid. "How long?" asked an assistant. "Could be hours, maybe longer. We're missing parts. Might be wiring. Could be a relay." That's when Callum Drake lost it. "You people understand I have a boardroom full of international investors waiting in San Diego in 6 hours? If this jet isn't airborne in 30 minutes, I pull every contract we have with this airport." The hangar exploded into chaos. Phones rang. Assistants panicked. One tried calling FAA contacts. Another paced in circles, whispering something about sending a second plane. Malik stood still, half hidden behind a stack of storage crates. But his mind was racing. He'd studied that exact jet model. He knew the ECS layout. He knew the circuit maps. He could practically see them in his head. And he remembered his grandfather teaching him how a bad ground connection can kill a compressor relay. "Most engines don't die," Wallace once said. "They lose faith, usually because some idiot didn't tighten a wire." Malik's fingers twitched at his sides. He didn't have a badge. He didn't have a title, but he had an answer. And something told him this was not the day to stay quiet. "Where's your damn mechanic?" Drake growled. "Called in sick. Food poisoning?" someone stammered. "Jerry's the only one left. He's not certified for jet diagnostics." Jerry looked like a man holding a firecracker with the fuse already lit. Malik took a step forward. "Jerry," he said quietly, "have you checked the E46 line off the base relay? If the ECS isn't pulling current, you might have corrosion in the lower panel junction near the stairwell." Jerry blinked. "What?" Malik approached slowly, hands up like he was walking toward a skittish animal. "The Gulfstream's compressor bypass routes through a cluster just under the floor panel. If there's heat damage or oxidized contact, it won't pull voltage. I've seen it on an older Cherokee with thermal overload." Jerry stared at him. "Kid, you even know what you're saying?" "I do," Malik said simply, "and your jet's not flying unless someone checks that." Someone behind them cleared their throat. The assistant with the tortoiseshell glasses had been listening, and now she was staring at Malik like he wasn't invisible anymore. Drake turned. His gaze locked onto the teenager with dust on his shirt and grease on his boots. "You," he said. "Who the hell are you?" Malik Travers, he replied. International. Just helping around the hangar, sir. Drake narrowed his eyes. You think you can fix my jet? Malik hesitated. I think I know where to look. You don't have time to guess. Let me spend 15 minutes proving I'm wrong, or you waste 3 hours hoping I'm not right. Drake's assistant whispered something to him. The CEO didn't reply at first. Then, you break it, you bought it. Malik nodded. Fair enough. Jerry reluctantly stepped aside. Malik knelt at the floor hatch of the Gulfstream, hands moving with certainty. His fingers traced wires, touched terminals, inspected connectors. And then, he saw it. One wire, burnt tip. Loosened terminal, a whisper away from total failure. He glanced at Jerry, then grabbed his personal screwdriver, the one with WT scratched into the side for Wallace Travers. He cleaned the contact, rebent the connector, and reseated it into place. Tight, secure. It wasn't pretty, but it was right, and it was enough. Outside, the pilot climbed into the cockpit. The engines hissed, then roared. Air conditioning systems rumbled back to life. Cool air spilled out of the open cabin. Malik stood up, shoulders back for the first time all day. Drake slowly walked toward him. You did that? He asked. Yes, sir. How old are you? 17. You certified? No, sir. Then why the hell would you touch a multi-million-dollar jet? Malik didn't blink. Because I knew what was wrong, and no one else did. Drake stared at him, trying to decide whether to be furious or impressed. What's around your neck? He asked. Malik hesitated. Then he pulled out the old, dulled Air Force pilot wing hanging on a chain. It was my grandfather's. He taught me everything. Drake didn't say anything for a long time. He just looked at the wing like it was a chapter from a book he forgot he'd read. Then finally, walk with me. Malik Travers hadn't stepped off the plane for more than 3 minutes before he realized the world he was entering wasn't just new. It was a different language entirely. Even the air in Dallas smelled different. Not of pine and sun-scorched grass like back home in Georgia, but of polished aluminum, jet fuel, and air-conditioned ambition. The kind of air that hummed with the silent buzz of 1,000 moving parts that never stopped, never slowed. The private terminal was a cathedral of steel and glass. Windows taller than trees framed the silhouette of aircraft hangars that gleamed under the mid-morning sun. A silent procession of engineers, analysts, and specialists moved with purpose between labs and bays, like neurons firing in a neural network Malik didn't yet understand, but desperately wanted to be part of. He walked through the lobby clutching his duffel bag like a shield. No one stopped him. They didn't need to. His name was already in the system. One of the receptionists gave him a small smile and handed him a visitor badge with a subtle, almost knowing glance, as if she already knew who he was or what he might become. Drake is waiting for you in Hangar 3, she said. Drake, not Mr. Drake, not Callum, just Drake, like a code word, like thunder. The walk to Hangar 3 took 5 full minutes, and with every step, Malik felt more out of place and more awake. His boots echoed off the polished floors. He passed workshops filled with parts he could only name from diagrams he'd studied online, or sketched from memory in his grandfather's garage. Jet engine rotors the size of tractor tires. Wire clusters packed with sensors so small you needed tweezers just to move them. Diagnostic screens filled with digital blueprints moving in real time. He passed one open workshop door and froze. Inside, a team of engineers was gathered around a table-sized piece of exposed fuselage, arguing in short, clipped phrases. One of them tapped a corner of the schematic and said, "This loop-back delay is bleeding the thermals." Another one shook her head. "It's not the delay. It's the relay voltage drift. You're reading it too late." Malik could see it, the flaw, like a ripple in the pattern. But he kept walking. Hangar 3 opened with a hydraulic hiss, revealing a space the size of a football field. A G700 prototype gleamed like a blade in the center, surrounded by suspended scaffolding, LED strips, and teams in navy blue jumpsuits. But Malik didn't notice any of that, because Callum Drake was already walking toward him, tablet in one hand, coffee in the other, wearing a polo shirt and worn-in jeans. His mirrored sunglasses reflected the hangar lights back at Malik like a challenge. "You showed up," he said. Malik nodded. Wouldn't miss it. Drake smirked. Good. Let's get to work. The next 6 hours felt like stepping into a current and trying not to drown. Malik wasn't there to observe. Not really. Within 20 minutes, he was handed gloves and a clipboard and pointed toward a modular diagnostic unit that was throwing bad readings. The unit controlled automated flap response during high-altitude turbulence. It was new, sensitive, and broken. We've recalibrated it 4 times. Still twitchy, said an engineer named Alina. She was lean, sharp-eyed, and didn't waste syllables. See what you can find. No instructions, no hint, just trust. Malik rolled up his sleeves and got to work. It wasn't about proving anything. He barely thought about Drake, or the engineers watching from the mezzanine. He thought about the Beechcraft back home, the way his grandfather would sit beside him, notebook in lap, saying nothing while Malik tried and failed and tried again. 2 hours later, he found the issue. The modular sensor was misreading elevation spikes because one of the grounding clips had been manufactured with a micron-level burr that threw off the timing at high altitudes. Not enough to notice on ground tests, but in flight, it could have caused flutter. He clipped the burr, reattached the grounding, recalibrated, ran the sequence again. Clean. Alina stood behind him with her arms crossed. You see things fast, she said. Malik didn't look up. I listened faster. By mid-afternoon, Malik had caught 3 more issues. A sensor readout on a twin-prop model that lagged by 1.3 seconds, a harmonic resonance imbalance in the fuselage mount of an unmanned drone prototype, and a software glitch that turned out to be a simple variable input typo. 1 character wrong in a sea of code. Every time he pointed something out, someone started watching him. Not just Alina, not just Drake, everyone. By 4:30, people were handing him tools without asking. They stopped second-guessing his age, or his skin, or his boots. Because Malik Travers wasn't guessing. He knew. And in a hangar full of multi-million-dollar guesses, knowing was rare. Drake found him again just after 5, sitting on an upturned case, rehydrating with a bottle of water that someone's assistant had wordlessly handed him. The CEO didn't say anything at first. He just stood next to Malik and stared at the glowing diagnostics board across the hangar, watching the data flicker in rhythmic pulses. You know what impresses me? Drake asked. Malik shook his head. Not credentials, not resumes. People show me degrees like they're golden tickets. But all I care about is this question. When something breaks, are you the person everyone turns to? Malik glanced at him. Drake didn't look back. Today, they turned to you. He handed Malik a sealed folder. Inside was a clearance badge, a schedule, a non-disclosure form, and a temporary housing voucher. 2-week program. Paid. Starting Monday. You'll rotate through 3 teams. If it goes well, we talk again. If it doesn't, at least you gotta fly. Malik opened the folder. For the first time since the G500 incident, he didn't feel adrenaline. He felt something quieter, heavier, like he'd just taken the first step onto a runway he'd spent years building, 1 bolt at a time. My grandfather would have liked you, he murmured. Drake finally turned. Sounds like I would have liked him more, he said. That night, alone in the guest housing quarters provided by Stratus Nova, Malik pulled out the pilot wing pendant and laid it on the desk beside the clearance badge. Legacy. And now maybe, beginning. He didn't sleep right away. He opened his grandfather's old notebook, flipped to a clean page, and began to sketch. A new kind of jet, a new kind of silence. And on the top of the page, in block letters, he wrote the words his grandfather once etched in the corner of every blueprint. Honor the silence before the roar. By the second morning of his mentorship in Dallas, Malik had already become a fixture in Hangar 3. Not officially, his badge still read, Visitor. But no one questioned his presence anymore. Not when he moved with the certainty of someone who belonged. Not when he solved problems before they became problems. Drake's engineers no longer looked at him with amused curiosity. They started giving him room to work. One even offered him a locker spot. Alina, who had barely spoken to him on the first day, now called him by name, sometimes even asking him to double-check things she'd signed off on. But it wasn't until day 4 that Malik knew something had shifted for real. They were working on a pressure control system in the aft cabin of a new vertical takeoff prototype. The readings were inconsistent, something about heat variation during sustained hover that didn't make sense on paper. The lead engineer, a quiet guy named Theo, frowned as he scrolled through diagnostics on a tablet. "Pressure curve dips right here," he muttered. Malik leaned over. "Could be thermal bleed. Is your rear panel lined with carbon fiber insulation?" Theo blinked. "Yeah, why?" "Some of the cheaper batches absorb heat unevenly. I saw that once on a composite wing mod back in Georgia. It throws off the vent sink." Theo stared at him for a long beat. "Show me," he said. They ran a thermal scan. The rear panel flickered in patchy reds and yellows, just like Malik said. Theo said nothing. He just tilted the tablet so the whole team could see, then looked at Malik. "You want to do the write-up?" That wasn't normal. That wasn't a gesture you made toward an intern. That was respect. Later that night, Malik sat in the quiet of the guest lounge, staring at his grandfather's pendant in his palm. He thought of the first time he'd watched Wallace Travers repair something, not with tools, but with questions. His grandfather used to say, "Ask what the machine's trying to say. Then shut up and listen." Malik had always listened. He just didn't know anyone else had noticed. Until now. On the morning of the 9th day, Marlene Reyes approached him while he was recalibrating a fuel pressure sensor. "Drake wants to see you," she said. "Conference room 2, 20 minutes. Her voice gave nothing away. Neither did her eyes. Malik cleaned his hands and changed shirts. He didn't know why, but it felt like something important was about to happen. When he arrived, Drake was already there, alone, sitting at the head of a long, dark wood table, sleeves rolled up, coffee untouched. "Have a seat," he said. Malik sat. Drake studied him for a moment before speaking. "You ever wonder why I picked you?" Malik swallowed. "Every day." Drake leaned back. "I've seen thousands of applicants, Ivy Leaguers, veterans, kids who built drones before they could drive. You didn't even send a resume." "I didn't think I had one worth reading," Malik said quietly. Drake nodded slowly. "But you had something they didn't." He slid a folder across the table. Malik opened it. At first, he didn't understand what he was looking at. Then he saw it. A letter of intent. A formal offer. Apprentice Engineer Program. Start date, August 1st location. Stratus Nova Dallas Division. Duration, 18 months. Status, full-time, paid, with benefits. Malik looked up, stunned. "I thought this was just a mentorship," he whispered. "It was," Drake said. "But some tests are pass-fail. You passed." Malik blinked rapidly. Drake stood and walked to the window, arms crossed. "You're raw. You've got gaps. There's tech here that'll take you years to fully understand. But none of that matters if you're the guy who shows up when it's broken." "You showed up." He turned to face Malik. "You fixed a jet most people wouldn't touch. You spotted flaws in designs our best missed. You earned respect without demanding it." He paused. "Let me ask you something, Malik. What do you want?" Malik looked at the pendant in his hand, then back at the offer. "I want to be the one they call when they don't know what's wrong," he said. "The guy who sees what no one else sees. I don't care if my name's on the door. I care that the plane flies." Drake smiled for the first time that morning. "Good, because this place doesn't need more ego. It needs eyes like yours." He extended a hand. "Welcome to Stratus Nova." Malik stood slowly and shook it. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. His grandfather used to say, "The loudest moment is the one you've earned in silence." This was that moment. When he left the room, people in the hallway didn't look through him anymore. They looked at him, not with disbelief, with recognition. That evening, Malik walked the perimeter of the hangar alone, hand in his pocket around the soft edge of the pilot wing. The Beechcraft back home was still grounded, but in his mind he was already flying. He called his mom from a bench near the runway, told her everything. She cried, then made him promise to eat something other than vending machine granola bars. He laughed, hard. It felt good. His last day of mentorship wasn't sad. It felt like sunrise. As he packed his bag, Theo gave him a patch from his old flight squadron. Alina handed him a fresh set of gloves. "I never give second pairs," she warned. Malik grinned. He returned to Georgia for 2 weeks before his official start. The Beechcraft sat under the tarp, waiting. He didn't touch it, not yet. Instead, he opened the notebook again and kept sketching, writing, reading. He called the number Marlene gave him, confirmed his housing, sent in his paperwork. And on the night before he left, he walked to the hangar, sat on the wing of the old plane, and whispered, "I'm gonna fly, Granddad." The wind didn't answer, but the quiet did. 6 months later, Malik Travers stood in the main engineering bay of Stratus Nova with a team of 12 around him. He wasn't the smartest one there, not the oldest, not the loudest. But when a power relay failed during a test run and warning lights screamed, everyone turned to him. And Malik? He listened, then moved. Because some people get hired to fill a position, others get chosen to answer a moment. Malik had been answering moments his whole life. Now they just had louder engines and a sky to reach. If this story made you feel something, hope, pride, fire, share it. Someone out there still waiting to be seen, like Malik once was.